everybody, welcome back to my channel. My screen is so dirty, I cannot see if I'm in focus. Is that better? Okay. Today's video is a little bit different for me just because I don't think I've ever posted something like this. But, yeah, as you can tell by the title, I have a ton of stuff I need to say in this video. So grab a snack. I will say that before I even do anything else. Grab a snack. This video will probably be long. And yeah, so today's video is just a full video dedicated to tips and tricks on makeup. That's like the most common question I get is, how do you do it? You know, I wish I was good. What are some tips and tricks for a beginner that you might have? Things like that. So this video is just gonna be full of things I have learned along the way. I've been doing makeup for like 6-7 years, something like that, like on myself religiously, like all the time. I obviously played in it when I was younger, but like I didn't have an interest in it until I think about 5-6 years ago, and I didn't start having so much until about 3 or 4 years ago. So I've definitely learned a lot of tricks along the way. So if you do any of these, that's great. And if you do like the opposite of what I say, whatever, if it works for you, that's awesome. These are just things that I have learned that work for me, and obviously everybody's different and things like that. So yeah, subscribe to my channel if you aren't already. Hit my notification bell so you know when I upload. Give this video a big thumbs up. And let's go ahead and get into the video because it'll be forever long. Yeah, I'm gonna try to say as much information as I possibly can, but you guys know my brain's constantly going like 5,000 miles a minute. So if I forget anything, just leave a comment down below, DM me on Instagram, Twitter, whatever, and I will answer it if you have a question that I didn't actually answer. So the basics of pretty much every makeup look is your base, and honestly the best way to get a good base is just to take care of your skin. I know that's such a basic thing to say, but it really does make the world of a difference. I have found several great drugstore things that actually work for my skin, and some people would say it's a lot of stuff on my skin, but it works for me. So you just kind of have to find out what works for you, see your dermatologist, things like that. But taking care of your face is a huge part of it, and never ever sleeping in your makeup. I have definitely done this before. I'm still guilty of doing it, but I've gotten a lot better at taking my makeup off. Do not leave it on. It clogs your pores. It just overall, it just does not leave you with a nice fresh base the next time you want to put on makeup the next day or whatever. Just take it off. It's so much easier, and I keep doing this with my hands. I don't know why. I would personally say the next step, obviously after having a clean base, clean hands, would be to moisturize your skin. Even if you have oily skin, I would 100% recommend moisturizing. It is so important, especially when you're gonna put a full face of makeup on. It just has everything else, just sits so beautifully on top of it. So I like to use the Lubriderm Daily Moisturizer as my moisturizer. I will only be linking the products I actually use in the video, because if I linked everything I talked about, my description box would be way too long. But the Clinique Moisture Surge is another favorite of mine. I absolutely adore it. So this is the Lubriderm Daily Moisturizer. It is from the drugstore, and it's my favorite moisturizer ever. I like to use that, and because I don't like dipping my nails or like my fingers into products like this, I like to use a brush. You can just dip your nails into it. I don't really like to do that. I just prefer a brush. So I like to just kind of put it on, and then I'll blend it out with my fingers. And another important step that you really kind of have to figure out on your own, I feel like no video will be able to tell you this at all, is to figure out what type of skin you have. I have normal to dry skin. My skin is pretty much normal most days, but it is on the drier side. So moisturizing to me is even more important. Sorry if you hear my dog barking. For the past like 3 videos I have filmed, she just keeps barking at Taffy. That's my cat, and I don't really know why. Like, they don't get along, but like the past 3 videos I filmed, like she just does not want to stop barking, and I don't understand that at all. So foundation, I have so many I want to talk about right here. Foundation is one of those things I feel like that is tricky for a lot of people, including myself. not just matching yourself, but finding a foundation that you actually really like. And I think the biggest challenge a lot of people have is coverage, what type of coverage you want. So I would recommend starting in the drugstore and then branching out to higher end foundation, just because drugstore is cheaper. So you're not going to be spending, you know, $50+ on a foundation and end up hating it. So I do have a couple. I have a light coverage foundation that I do want to talk about from the drugstore. So if you are more into light coverage, or you don't like heavyweight foundations or anything like that, you would probably love the Neutrogena Hydro Boost Hydrating Tint. This moisturizes and plumps skin for 24 hours. This one's in the shade 10, Classic Ivory. So this doesn't have the most full coverage. Now, my skin, I'm blessed with pretty much clear skin. I break out every now and then, but most of the time my skin is pretty clear. I have texture and redness, but I don't have a lot of acne. So this is a nice foundation for me, but I personally don't use this very often. I'm a full coverage type of person. This does come on a doe foot applicator, so it is very easy to apply. I like to just apply it and use a makeup sponge to blend it out. I use a makeup sponge to blend out pretty much all my foundations, but you can use makeup brushes. I just prefer a sponge application. But this is a really nice lighter coverage foundation. CC creams, BB creams do like the same thing. They're really light coverage, pretty much no coverage. But if you want something lightweight, easy to use from the drugstore, I would recommend this. It has hyaluronic acid in it, which is great for your skin. And if you want something medium to full coverage where you can build it up, I would recommend the Maybelline Fit Me. This is the dewy and smooth one. I also have the matte and poreless. I prefer the dewy and smooth one just because I have drier skin. This one, it has SPF 18 in it, and it is in the shade 110 Porcelain. It hydrates and smooths skin texture, and it has a natural luminous finish. I agree with that. If you have texture like I do, you would love this. It does not, you know, cling to texture. It doesn't make it stand out or anything like that. My face is itchy. And I absolutely love this. This is like my third bottle of this. This is great. This one does not come with a pump, which is like the only downside. I just have to like stick my finger on it and like tip it upside down. But the coverage is great. It's medium to full coverage. Again, if you don't want a heavyweight foundation, but you want a little bit more coverage than a lightweight or light coverage foundation, I would recommend either of the Maybelline Fit Me's. I prefer this one. The matte one is not super matte. It's like a satin matte. So even if you have dry skin, it will not make you look even more dry, if that makes any sense. This is a great foundation. Another foundation from Maybelline that I absolutely love. Maybelline foundations are my absolute favorite from the drugstore, you guys know that. But this one is more full coverage. To me, I feel like this is a full coverage, but I have heard people say it's medium to full. The Fit Me is buildable, and this one is too. This is the Maybelline Dream Liquid Mousse Airbrush Finish in the shade 10 Porcelain Ivory. They just recently changed the name of this. So this is the old name, but it's in like the same type packaging. This is one of my favorite foundations ever. I have talked about it a ton on my channel. I mean, look at this bottle. It's used and abused. If you could actually see, this cap is like tan, so you can't really see how nasty it is. But if you could see it, it's nasty. Just trust me on this. The coverage in this is amazing. I actually wore this to my high school graduation, and this does not budge at all. So again, if you want more medium to full, I lean more towards its full coverage, but I have heard some people say it's more medium to full. You can build it up if you need to. I like to just put on a light layer and then build up if I need to later on, just to avoid any cakiness on my skin. But this is a great foundation for that. It absolutely is beautiful. It's not too expensive. Out of these two, I prefer the Fit Me for like everyday wear, and this one more for like events. If I need my makeup to last for a long time, things like that. This is just really long wearing, and it doesn't flash back. It has no SPF in it. And then we get to the full coverage. So one from the drugstore that is full coverage is the Milani Conceal and Perfect 2-in-1 Foundation and Concealer. This one's in the shade 00 Light Natural. It is medium to full coverage, lightweight, oil-free, long-wearing, water-resistant, and sweat-proof. I agree with that entirely. I wore this foundation to both of my proms, and I would not recommend any other foundation for a prom from the drugstore other than this one. The only downside is it does oxidize quite a lot, and the shade range is not that great. But if you can find your shade, I would 100% recommend it. It is amazing. Everything sits beautifully on top of this. It does come with a pump, which is another great thing, and the packaging is really, really pretty, this ombre, and it's seriously incredible. Wear though using this foundation because it is very, very thick. So less is more when it comes to this foundation. I would not layer it unless you absolutely have to, just because it is so thick and full coverage. And I would 100% recommend applying this with a sponge, just because it is so thick. It can get cakey very fast if you are not careful. So that is something to look out for. So another foundation, this is the only high-end one I have, and if you're subscribed to my channel, you're gonna know what it is. But this is my favorite foundation in the entire world. And it is full coverage. This is the NARS Natural Radiant Long Wear Foundation in the shade L2 Mont Blanc. This is a $50 foundation. I know, absolutely ridiculous. But this is my favorite foundation in the entire world. I used this for my sister's wedding, and it was rainy, I got hot, and it did not budge at all. And so long wearing it is. It is a natural radiant. It is full coverage. This sits beautifully on my skin every single time I use it. I absolutely love it. The only downside is that it is $50. So if you are wanting to get a high-end foundation, I would recommend this one. It is absolutely incredible. This is my favorite foundation in the entire world. But I have just recommended 4 amazing drugstore ones as well, and there are similar foundations to this at the drugstore. I would say that these are almost similar in consistency, but they are not in coverage, if that makes sense. This is my perfect shade, and that brings me to my next topic of foundation. Do not match foundation to your arm or to your face. I've made that mistake several times. Match it to your neck so it actually like matches truly, because a lot of people don't bring foundation all the way down their neck and then it looks like they're wearing a mask. If you match the foundation to your neck, if you don't do a perfect blend down your neck, it won't be that big of a deal. Now with the Milani one, if you are going to use this, I would 100% make sure that you are dragging it down as far as you possibly can. See, just because it does oxidize very fast. So I would keep that in mind using that one. But any of the other ones, you don't really have to be too careful. I would still drag it down your neck because obviously blend, your color is gonna look completely weird because you're gonna mask out all the color on your face and then not on your neck. So then you're gonna look really discolored and like really off. You're still gonna be able to tell you're wearing makeup, but it's not gonna be as noticeable if you drag it down your neck. You don't have to drag it like all the way down your chest unless you want to. I would just drag it down your neck, you know, just a little bit, just so you have a blend. I'm going to apply a primer. Primer, I feel like is a huge thing that people just ignore. I know a lot of primers just don't do anything, and my sisters are especially bad at just ignoring primer altogether. They think it's a whole scam. One of the best primers I've ever tried, drugstore or high-end, is the e.l.f. Mineral Infused Face Primer. This is a complete dupe, in my opinion, for the Smashbox face primer. I'm not entirely sure what it's called, but I think I mentioned it in my drugstore favorites, which should already be up. If it is, I will have it in a card. If it's not, it'll be up very soon after this video. But this primer is amazing. It just smooths over your skin. If you have pores, you would absolutely love this. I mean, obviously we all have pores, but like if you have big pores, problem areas, you know, you would probably love this. It does smooth over pores. Foundation just glides on over top of this. Primer is another thing you kind of have to experiment with. You have to figure out what you want to cover. This will not hide any redness. This will not, you know, add any moisture to my skin. This won't do a whole lot except for smooth over my texture. So if that is a huge issue for you, I would recommend this primer. But if your issue is like, you know, redness, e.l.f. makes a great green primer. I believe I've used it on my channel before. If your issue is you look really dry and dull, they make an illuminating one, they make a hydrating one. e.l.f. has great face primers for really affordable prices. So I would again start with e.l.f. or any drugstore primer really, and just branch out and then figure out what you like from there. So when you go to like Sephora or something, you have a better idea about what you want. This is pretty much all personal preference. I'm going to apply that. I start applying this by my nose and on my cheeks, because that is where I have the most texture, is right through here. My biggest pores are right through here, and I have a lot of texture on my cheeks. Primer is on. I like to just kind of give it a light tap. I usually crop this out of my videos just because it's pretty much just wasted time, just to make sure it's nice and absorbed and blended into my skin. I don't have extra primer just kind of hanging out on my face. So for foundation today, I'm actually going to use a drugstore one. I'm going to use the Maybelline Dream Liquid Mousse in the shade 10 Porcelain Ivory. I have a lot of lines under my eyes. I have a lot of creasing under there, so I don't like to take foundation right in here because I will be putting concealer there. So the least amount of products I can put underneath my eyes, the better for me personally, just because I have a lot of creasing. I just had to pull my hair up and spray some hairspray in it because it looks like I'm wearing gel from the lights and the hairspray, but it was just getting on my nerves, sitting on my neck. Next product I'm going to apply to my face is concealer. I like to use the Maybelline Instant Age Rewind Concealer. This one's in the shade Ivory. There are a ton of concealers on the market that are great. This one is great from the drugstore. Even though it's from the drugstore, it's still kind of expensive, but it is great. And I like to just take some. And like I just said, because I have so many lines under my eyes, I can't put a lot of product there. And I like to just put some underneath my eyes and down the bridge of my nose. I don't do the whole highlighted forehead thing because I feel like I have a pretty big forehead, so I don't want to, you know, make it look any bigger. So I like to dig in, take my sponge. I like to blend out my nose highlight first. I will blend it up my nose, barely onto my forehead, but I don't want to bring my forehead any more forward than it already is. Now to bake, I'm quickly going to use the Maybelline Fit Me Loose Finishing Powder in the shade 5 Fair. I will talk about baking here in a second, but I don't want to crease. So I'm going to take my sponge. Baking is something I feel like a lot of people that I have heard from struggle with. So I have two powders that I like to bake with. They're the only two loose powders I actually own. This is the Coty Airspun Loose Face Powder in the shade Translucent, and then this is the Maybelline Fit Me powder that I just used. I go back and forth between the two. This one's known for flashing back. I personally have never had an issue with flashing back, but I do know people who have had that happen to them. One of my friends had that happen to her, and it was funny but very sad at the same time. This one doesn't flash back. This is a great drugstore option. This one is cheaper. If you are on a budget, it's kind of depending on personal preference. Either one of these work perfectly fine. Depending on how my skin actually is, makes my decision on if I'm gonna bake or not. If my under eyes are being really, really dry, like if they're really dry that day, I haven't drank enough water or something, I will use a pressed powder. Pressed powders are amazing. I will be using one here in a second to set my foundation. But one of my favorites, I actually don't have it out here, one second. One of my favorite powders to use to set my concealer is the Wet n Wild contouring palette. This one's in the shade Dulce de Leche. Clearly I love this because I've hit pan on the lighter side, which is the side I use to set my concealer. It is amazing. That was the only powder I would use underneath my eyes for like 2 years. Like it was this only. And I have a backup of this already bought because I cannot live without this. It's amazing. But if you want pressed powders and not loose powders, two that I love, this is the e.l.f. finishing powder. This is, I think, their Beautifully Bare collection. This one's in the shade Fair, and it looks like this. This is a very sheer powder, so I don't love to use this underneath my eyes. I like to put this all over my face when my foundation isn't too tacky or something like that. Today my foundation is pretty tacky, so I don't want to use this. I want to use my favorite pressed powder, which is the Maybelline Fit Me powder. This one's the shade 110 Porcelain. It is part of the Fit Me line. Obviously, this is the normal to dry one. And I like to use this to set my skin and my concealer. So I'm going to take a powder brush and start setting my foundation. So I like to pack it on like this. And then I will do like circular motions just to knock off any extra powder. And then I take it down my neck as well. I take it down my neck because my face has been set, so you'll be able to see powder because, you know, I'm wearing powder. It's not going to magically sink into my skin. And then you don't set your neck and your face are two different textures, and it does look really, really weird. So I like to just take it down my neck, and plus when I bronze my neck, putting bronzer on top of powder just makes it much, much easier to blend. I'm going to dust away the extra powder that is left from baking. Now it's time to contour. Contouring is another thing that troubles people. So I'm going to just use this Wet n Wild contour palette that I just talked about because it's out on my desk. So I'm going to use the darker side. And contouring basically shapes your face to make it look slimmer, but it can also make it look chubbier depending on how you contour. So I like to contour from the top of my ear, just right in the hollow of my cheekbone, dragging straight down towards my mouth. I used to curve it upwards, but then I realized my cheeks are already naturally pretty round. And then when I do that, it just makes my cheeks look even rounder. But I like to do that, and then I like to take my brush and blend upwards. Again, contouring is another one of those things that you just kind of have to figure out what shape you personally want. But that is the shape that I like to go in, just from here to like here, and then I like to blend upwards. I also like to move my head when I'm doing this. I feel like it's much easier than moving my whole arm. So I like to contour my cheeks and my jaw. I do not like to contour my forehead. I have done it, but I just prefer to bronze my forehead. That is something that I have found just looks better on my face shape. I don't personally love to put contour and bronzer on my forehead. I feel like it can make me look really muddy. So I like to just contour my jaw and my cheeks and bronze my forehead. And I like to just run it along my jaw and then blend it down my neck. So again, we have the same consistent color pattern here. Bronzer time. My favorite bronzer in the entire world is the Lorac Baked Body Frosting All Over Face and Body Glow in the shade Tahitian Glow. This is a glowy bronzer, and it doesn't have any shimmer to it. It just has this like natural glow. There it is swatched. There's no shimmer. It's just like a nice sheen. I don't know what it is about it, but I absolutely love this. There are matte bronzers that are really good as well. What are they called? The Too Faced chocolate bronzers are matte. They're amazing, but this one is my personal favorite. So I like to take a big powder brush and bronze right above my contour. Blushes are one of those products that I mix up all the time. My eyes itchy. I switch up my blush pretty much every day. The blush I'm really loving right now is the NARS Orgasm Blush. It is so pretty. Look at that color. It's gorgeous. Now this one does have shimmer in it and like little bitty tiny pecks of glitter. So if you want a matte blush, a good matte blush is the City Color Be Matte Blush. This one is in the shade Guava. I absolutely love this. I believe it made it into my drugstore favorites. Not entirely sure. I have talked about it before on my channel though. But this one is the one I'm obsessed with right now. I will swatch it for you. This is like a classic here on YouTube. It is this gorgeous pinky peachy color. Can you guys even see it? There it is, kind of. Yeah, it's absolutely stunning. So I'm going to use that today. A trick that I have learned over the years that has been a savior to me is to take a big powder brush like this is massive, and after I apply my blush, blend everything together just to make sure that, you know, everything's nice and cohesive with each other. Even run it across my forehead, you know, just making sure that everything's nice and blended. This brush is a godsend. I absolutely love it. I have no idea what it is though. There's no name on it. Now it is time to set my face. I like to set my face after I do my blush just because I have dry skin, like I've said 1,000 times. And setting my skin, you know, just the setting spray absorbs the extra powder and your highlighter sticks to it, and it shines 10 times as bright. So I love the glazed donut highlighting, you know, sensation that's everywhere. That's my personal favorite. I know a lot of people love natural highlights, so I will talk about them in a second. But I have two setting sprays that I absolutely love. One from the drugstore. Ooh, my bad, my phone is on. One from the drugstore is the L'Oreal Infallible Pro Spray and Set, the Makeup Extender Setting Spray. And I absolutely love this. This is actually my second bottle of this. And one from Merle Norman, which is high-end brand, is the Expert Touch finishing spray. I actually have a backup of this already. This is incredible. I'm trying to use this up. It's literally almost gone. If you can see that, this one is like pretty much full. So I will be using this one today. And then I will take my sponge and very, very gently just start tapping and setting everything. Makeup setting sprays also just set your makeup obviously in place and prevent your makeup from wearing off. So if you want your makeup to last all day, I would use a setting spray. They're absolutely essential in my collection. I cannot go without them. I love these two the absolute most. I use these two the most. If you're subscribed to my channel, you know that I use these two all the time. They're very similar, I would say. This one has a little bit of a finer mist, but I mean, they're pretty much the same thing. I don't really notice a difference between the two. The best natural highlight that I have found is the Wet n Wild Color Icon Bronzer in the shade Reserve Your Cabana. This is a highlighter I feel like everybody on YouTube has talked about. It is a bit powdery, but it is such a beautiful natural glow. I don't even think you'll be able to see this when I swatch it. It is right here. You kind of can. It just gives a nice natural glow. I do have a couple that are like middle of the road reflective, but not like super reflective. So one of them is the Laura Geller Baked Highlighter in the shade Portofino. This is reflective, but it's not, you know, like you're gonna see it from outer space or anything. This is like a nice in between. For me, it's right there. It's a nice, you know, balance, I think, of shine and glow for a highlighter. And one that is very similar is the Tarte Exposed Highlight. This is the Amazonian Clay Highlighter in Exposed Highlight. This is very similar. This does have little specks of glitter in it. And the only difference is this one has a bit more of a gold undertone, and the Laura Geller one is a bit more on the champagne side. If you guys can see that, it's right here on the bottom. That is it right there. So those are like middle of the road, reflective, but not, you know, in your face. Another one that is kind of like that, but you can mix and match, is the Smashbox Casey Holmes Spotlight Palette. This one's in the shade Pearl. I absolutely adore this. I like to mix the first two shades together to get a really intense highlighter, but if you just go with the middle shade, it's not super reflective. I mean, it is reflective, but not, you know, very reflective. There it is right there. I mean, it's just an average highlighter. The one on the very end has glitter in it. I don't use that one very often, but these two mixed together are absolutely amazing. So those are like the three middle of the road if you don't like the super natural, but you don't want to go into the, you know, super blinding highlighters. Those would be nice. Now, the natural one does have an advantage. It doesn't really emphasize texture, and these three don't emphasize a lot of texture. Now, the next three I'm going to talk about do, because they are very reflective and they're very similar. So I have two from the drugstore and one high end. The first one is the LA Girl Strobe Light Strobing Powder. This one's in the shade 120 Watt. This is a white highlighter. If you have fairer skin like me, you would absolutely love this, but this is a very reflective highlighter. Now, I would be aware, because I mean, look how reflective that is. If you have a lot of texture like I do, it will emphasize texture. It will make it stand out a little bit more. But to me, I prefer the highlighted look over, you know, anything. I'm willing to pay that. So that is that one right there. It's absolutely stunning. And another one that from the drugstore is the Milani Strobe Light in the shade Afterglow. This is what it looks like right here. This is a very nice champagne, and I absolutely love this. This is a very gorgeous highlighter and very reflective. If you guys can see that right there on the bottom, that's it right there. It's very reflective. It's almost like the same undertone as the Laura Geller one. It's just much more intense. Then I have the Mary Luminizer by The Balm. This is a cult classic on YouTube, and for good reason. This is like blinding heaven. I absolutely adore this highlighter. It's one of my favorites in my entire collection. That's why I'm mentioning it in this video. And it's there on the bottom. So these three are very reflective. So for this video, I'm going to use the Milani one. My favorite eyeshadow primer is the Smashbox Photo Finish Shadow Primer. But one that is very, very close is the Lorac Behind the Scenes. I've used this a million times on my channel. I absolutely have to prime my lids. One of the reasons is because they are, you know, orange, red tinted. Another reason is it helps your shadow last so much longer. I'm going to choose a palette that I have not used in a minute. It's another Lorac product. This is the Lorac Pro Original palette. I have not used this palette in a minute and I want to give it some love. So this is what a palette looks like right here. So because I don't know what look I'm actually going to do, I'm only going to set my lid or my crease to brow bone. So I'm going to use the shade Cream, which is this matte shade right here. If my camera wants to focus, it's this one right here. And I'm going to set, like I said, my crease to brow with that shade. Just because I don't know what look I'm going to do. I might go in with dark colors, I might go in with light colors. I think I'm gonna go in with a, you know, pretty easy look just because I want to give tips and tricks to all of you guys. Now I'm going to take the shade right next to that, which is called Taupe. It's this one right here. And I'm going to take out a nice big fluffy crease brush and I'm going to put that in my crease. So I'm going to take a denser crease brush and I'm going to take the shade Sable, which is this matte brown right here, just to deepen up my crease a little bit. It's going to be like a very neutral eye, but this palette's very neutral. And I'm going to put that right in the crease just to deepen it up. I'm not going to take it in as far either. And start blending with those same round motions. And I'm gonna take that same brush that I had taupe on and start blending out the edges. To pack shades on my lid, I like to use a packing brush or like a little bitty concealer brush. These are amazing for packing on color. So I'm going to actually do the shade Gold just because I think it's so pretty and I really want to use it, which is this one right here. I'm going to pack that all over my lid. I'm going to take that brush that had Sable on it and just blend that out. My eyes are kind of hooded, so there will be shadow transfer a little bit, but that's not a huge problem for me personally. And I'm going to take the shade Espresso, which is this matte brown right here, and I'm going to deepen the outer part of my eye. You can definitely go in with black, but I personally prefer dark brown. I like to put a matte highlighter on my brow bone, so I'm going to take the white shade from this palette, which is this one right here. Please focus, there we go. And I like to just use white on my brow bone. Okay, so I'm going to take Sable again. I'm going to put that on my lower lash line. And then I'm going to take a little teeny tiny bit of espresso right on the outer part. I'm going to take just a teeny tiny bit of taupe just to make sure that everything is nice and blended together. Eyeliner, I'm going to put on a brown eyeliner, but you can really do any color you want with this. I'm going to use the Covergirl Liquline Blast eyeliner. I'm going to put on mascara now. Mascara, again, is another very personal preference thing. You have, you know, voluminous, you have lengthening, you have thickening. I like voluminizing mascaras. Voluminous mascaras? Which one of those words is correct? I like voluminous mascaras, either way. And my biggest tip for mascara is just to put layers on, like coats, and I also like to get really close to my mirror so I can really see the base of my lashes. So I will be cropping this part out because I literally get like this far away from my mirror, but it really does help in putting on mascara and not making a mess. I still do make a mess, it's just not as often. Okay, now I like to highlight my inner corner, so I'm going to take the shade Nude, which is this one right here, and just pop that in my inner corner. This helps brighten your look, make you look more awake, and I think it just ties everything together. Now, depending on what look I want, I will either put it right here, right in the corner, or I will do like this whole circular thing. Most times I like to do like the whole circular thing like this, just because I feel like it really helps brighten my eyes up. Now, if you were going out, I would recommend putting on another layer of setting spray, but because I'm not going to do that. Now it's time for lips, and I know I skipped eyeliner, but I don't really have any tips for that. Just really just keep practicing. That's like the only tip I can give you, keep practicing. And I'm going to skip lip liner as well because I feel like lip liner is just self-explanatory. You just take a lip liner and just line your lips, overdraw them if you want. So I'm just going to pop on a lipstick real quick. All right, so I'm not actually going to put on a matte lipstick for the first time in forever. So I'm going to use the Lorac Pink Mink lipstick. Okay, and that is it for today's video. I'm so sorry it was so long, but I really hope I informed you on something. I feel like I started getting really specific and very detailed, but then it just kind of stopped because, you know, mascara, I don't really have a lot to say about mascara or anything like that. But if you do have any questions, leave them down below or DM me. And I think that's it. So subscribe to my channel if you aren't already. Hit my notification bell so you know when I upload. Give my video a big thumbs up, and I will see you in my next video.